morning, right? Is it? Yeah? Okay, cool. Well, awesome. We are super excited to talk about mentoring today. And I have a fantastic team of people that have already mentored me backstage and have said, you know what? If we introduce ourselves, let's focus on something personal, right? Let's talk about our favorite ice cream flavor. So, Shawna, introduce yourself and tell us about your favorite ice cream flavor.
You got it. Thanks, Tirza. Hi, everyone. My name is Shawna. I run community and events at a company called Pre-Sales Collective. My favorite ice cream flavor since I have been a kid is mint chocolate chip. I won't hear anything from anyone about that. It is mint chocolate chip.
And Marius, tell us about your favorite ice cream flavor.
Sure. First, I'm Marius Ciortea. I am the Chief Community Officer for IBM. And my favorite ice cream is coconut ice cream. Love it. And now I may offend somebody. There's an ice cream flavor that I just didn't get, and that's garlic ice cream. I had it at the Garlic Festival. I don't get it. If I offend anybody, I'm sorry. But garlic ice cream is not in my freezer today.
Okay. Where did you go?
Garlic Festival. It's a big thing around here. We have a garlic in Gilroy Garlic Festival.
Really?
It's huge, and they have garlic ice cream, and it's just, I don't get it.
We're changing the subject of the talk today.
But
we're not going to be.
But that's one of the good things about mentoring that I hope that we talk about is those are the kind of conversations that you need to have with a mentor and a mentee is understanding personal preferences, right? And that's part of mentoring and that personal connection, and that's why community and mentoring go so well together. But to start off, what do we mean when we talk about mentorship inside of community?
Yeah.
Shawna, tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So I think mentoring as an overall subject talks about the relationships that are formed organically or purposefully between two parties or a couple parties for mutual benefit and advancement, right? That's the goal. For the purposes of this talk, at least for the first part of it, what we're going to talk about is the way that you can use those structures inside of your communities to help advance everyone. So what are the structures and programs we can put in place to use mentorship as a philosophy and a tool to help your community grow? That's at least how I see it.
Absolutely. And Marius, tell us a little bit about how you see that relationship.
So yeah, I want to back this up. I've been in community stuff probably for the past 15, 20 years or so, and I've been in many brainstorm sessions, and it always starts off like, why would somebody want to come to the community, right? And you write on the sticky notes and you put it on the board. I have not been in any session where mentoring is not coming up. And not only that, when you ask them people to vote on what do you think is the most important thing in the community, mentoring is always in either first or the top three. And that, I think, is inherent to any community. Somebody comes to a community because they want to be part of a tribe, right? And then when they're there, they want to get help. And what's the next level above help? They want to get ahead and learn from people that know more than they do, and that's mentoring. And our job as community builders is really to create or facilitate the opportunities for mentorship. And I think we'll talk more about this in a second.
Yeah, absolutely. So nextly, let's talk a little bit about how mentorship manifests itself within your community. Shawna, do you have specific examples about how you facilitate mentorship?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about it in two chunks. So Pre-Sales Collective is a community of interest. So people are joining our community because they are pre-sales professionals or want to be pre-sales professionals. And the pre-sales professional industry, not to go too in depth, but much like community, it's a widely unknown but very necessary part of the sales cycle. And so we actually have an education program called the Pre-Sales Academy that helps take folks that are trying to break into technology through pre-sales and give them their start. And part of that program is mentorship. So speaking to exactly what Marius just said, is that folks who are trying to break into technology have an opportunity to attach themselves to a person who is in the industry, who is passionate about bringing new folks and diverse minds into the industry, and they really get a chance to have their hand held through the process. And I think for our students, what we find is that they are so much more likely to stay inside of the industry if there is someone who is cheering their name. I think so often as we move inside, especially in community as well, it can become this sea of, where do I go? Where am I supposed to be? And having someone being there next to you, alongside of you, giving the intricate details of how you make it in this industry is so helpful. Mm-hmm. Now, on the community side, for the 25,000 people in my community, there's a lot of different ways to engage in mentorship or become a mentor. We have an ambassador program, right, which allows people to self-select and say, hey, I want to stand up in the community and be a voice and help folks along the way. We also use tools. We have a one-on-one tool, Orbit. One of the Orbits here today is the tool that we use to help those facilitations. And also on the event side, we run in-person and virtual events. We always want to make sure that a part of our event experience is an opportunity for people to make these organic connections. And you do have to do a little bit of, behind-the-scenes baseball to make sure that people know who is looking for a mentor and who is looking to be mentored, rather, or who's looking to be the mentor. And one of the ways we accomplish that is that when you come to an event of ours, you get a name tag with a color code on that, which says where you are at in your community journey. And it's a professional nod, but it also lets people know, I'm trying to break into the industry. I want to talk to someone with a red dot because they have been in the industry 5+ years. So that's a couple of the ways that manifests in our community.
I love that. That's such a great idea. Yeah. Like, I wish I had a pen out here so I could write it down and bring it back.
Oh, I'll tell you later.
You'll tell me later. You're gonna message me. So Marius, I'm waiting for you to tell me, again, I need another takeaway to bring home with me. How do you facilitate mentorship?
So in very similar ways, I'm going to try to give 2 examples. One, which is the organic one that you speak of, but I think there's other ones that brands can certainly lead and become those mentors that our customers are looking for. The first one is just a very basic one that you guys all do, which is discussion threads, right? And the point there is the reason we have communities, and these communities are not anonymous, but actually when you're putting a question in, you should use like your real name, is because you're creating this opportunity for somebody to then follow you, and then you create this opportunity of mentorships. I personally know that when I started certain hobbies, like I'm a beekeeper on the side, I went to communities about beekeeping, and then I asked questions, and somebody actually was gracious enough to answer. And then you take it to the next step, which is you start a direct message. You say like, hey, thank you so much for answering this question. I have a couple other more. Would you be okay if I can ask them to you, right? And there you go. 5 years later, I still talk to the same individual. I know that is happening in my community day to day. I cannot necessarily point you out like, who is mentor of whom, but I see the direct messages going, I see the conversations going, and people get to know each other. So organically, I think this is happening. On the brand side, an example is we run hackathons, right? And those are very technical hands-on experiences where the members may not know or get stuck and they need a little help to get to the next level, or even getting feedback on is their idea for the hackathon good or bad. And we appoint at that point IBMers, right, subject matter experts, to be those mentors for our community. And it's a short-term relationship maybe, right? It's maybe just for the duration of the hackathon, but super important because, as you mentioned, people want to kind of get to the next level or next step, and clearly outlining that, hey, if you're stuck, we have somebody called a mentor, call them mentors. That already opens exactly the expectation on how to engage with that individual. And I think what the outcome of that is really cool. You get closer to the brand, and if it's their first experience in tech is with IBM, and they want to continue their relationship with IBM throughout their career, I think then certainly I was successful from a community management perspective.
I really appreciate that. You bring up a good point in this difference of organic and inorganic styles of finding mentors, is that I think sometimes when we put the label of mentor on someone, it puts a sort of inadvertent pressure for them to perform in a way that is going to be a dramatic, life-changing moment for the mentee, which obviously could be true. But I also think that it's important that we're giving folks opportunities to step up, to post their questions in the discussion forum, to answer those questions, because it levels the playing field and creates this organic connection with someone who maybe never considered themselves a mentor, but they do have a wealth of knowledge, which we all do, to share with the community. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I mean, you take in I think it's also to the next step is this ambassadorship programs. Yeah. And one way to identify who those ambassadors are the ones that are active and already raising their hands and saying, I want to be active, I want to help others. Mm-hmm. Then it's important for us as community leaders to recognize that, encourage that, and reward that. And I think out of those 3 things, programs like ambassador programs, IBM have something called IBM Champions, are born. right? Because we see those guys and we're like, we want to do a little bit more for you because you're doing so awesome. And then we're creating those programs.
And we make a specific point in our ambassador program to not put a delineation about how long you've been in the industry in order to be an ambassador, which we could probably have a whole other conversation about, like programs, but we won't go down there. But I think it's important, again, how we are creating environments for people to raise their hand and be ambassadors. You have to remove some of those mental roadblocks that folks might face to say, oh, that's not for me. It's great.
Yeah, and it's absolutely true with mentoring too, is I think as far as looking at mentoring opportunities for people is it's very important that you don't want to mentor if I'm, someone that's coming out of college. I don't want someone that maybe is retired or has been in the industry for 20 years. I want someone that literally just graduated that can help me through that next step, right, in my life. I have a sister that's, as an example, my sister's 11 years younger than me. She recently went to college, and she has all these questions, right, about like going to college and blah, 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 and this and that and the other. And I'm like, oh, and she's like, that was like 10 years ago. That's not even relevant. So she does not want my advice because I'm, you know what I mean? Like I'm not someone that she wants. Like, so it's really important to think about mentees and what they want and what will help them progress to the next level. So I think that's important as we talk about mentorship as well.
Absolutely. Tirza, I'm going to take your job over for a second because I have some questions for you. You run a fabulous community, and for you, Marius, as well. And you started to talk about this a little bit, about how do you provide mentoring opportunities at scale in your communities?
Do we want to start? Marius, you want to start?
Sure. It doesn't matter. So, like I said, I think mentoring is something that is part of our playbook. As you've seen the previous sessions, important to have like a playbook. We look at, first of all, the regular programs that we have, the discussion forums, events, and so forth. The next thing is data. That's what becomes critical. So you need to understand who is engaged, and gamification methodology can help you kind of identifying the top performers. In our community, we reward people like you answering a question, you get 5 points, you post a blog, you get 20 points, that kind of stuff. And you kind of see organically who is rising to the top. At that point, you kind of want to put a list together and start thinking, how do you bring them in for a conversation so they understand we understand what their goals are, why they are so active in the community, and they understand from IBM's point of view why we have that community. And when we're having those conversations, we start mentioning the mentoring aspect of it. And now they becoming more aware of what they're doing. And our hope, of course, is then that they go out and become those mentors. We see this happening successfully, so we think we're doing the right thing. What we don't want to do, of course, is like, you shall be a mentor. I think that doesn't work. So it's just recognizing and kind of just pointing them towards like, hey, have you noticed that you helped out, 1,000 people last year? And they go like, wow, I have no idea. You know what that is? That's mentoring. And they go like, I guess you're right. But now just them thinking about that, when they're going back, they take a slightly different approach and they take a little more time. And I think that's how we scale that program.
Do you find once you identify this role that people have, hey, do you know this is a mentor, that they re-engage in a different or more intentional way? Have you seen folks do that?
We hope that, that's coming out. Yes, we do see that. It's hard to track, right?
Sure.
Because we don't see the private conversations that are happening. But what we do see when they become especially IBM champions, we see it in the amount of, so IBM champions being, our ambassador program, we allow them, or not allow them, we encourage them to take charge and have like sessions, and they become our speakers at our events. And guess what? The sessions that an IBM champion does is always more attendant than what an IBMer does, unless it's an executive, right? Why is that? Because they have gotten to know those IBM champions in the community, and the people that they mentor come to those sessions, right? So most of the IBM's champion sessions, we have to sometimes close the doors because there are so many people wanting to attend. So that's an evidence that is working, and people are coming to them because they see them as mentors, leaders, thought leaders, whatever you want to call them, but they have a personal connection.
It's fantastic.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, scalability is something that's come up like all week, right? Like even the pre-workshop we talked about, scalability is a huge deal. And I think mentorship is something that, and Marius, we talked about this, a few weeks ago as we were preparing for this, is really mentoring is something that a lot of programs are hard to scale when we talk about mentoring. These corporate, more formal mentorship programs they're hard to do, they're hard to pull off. You can't prove the ROI. And really doing mentorship within community and almost this micro-mentoring model is something that is much more scalable. And honestly, I think it's something that mentees actually want and prefer these days. It's really scary to think about a mentoring relationship, right? When I sign up for a mentoring program and being matched or assigned with someone that I spend the next year with, right? And I often like to use like the online dating type model that like, I don't want to just get matched with someone and like be stuck with them, right? Like I want to look at their profile, I want to have a conversation, I want to, grab a drink, then go to dinner. Like I want to slowly ease into it. I don't want to just be assigned to someone and then be in that commitment, if you will. Yeah. And so I think that's where people are, and I think community gives you an opportunity to kind of scale this and give more micro-mentoring type opportunities. Our community has, as a society, we have 150,000 members. Not all of those people are active within our community. It's about a third of that. So we have about 50,000 people that are actually active. And it's easier, right, to engage those people and have mentoring opportunities and relationships within that group. And it's more scalable because I don't have to assign people. I don't have to check in. I don't have to do all of those things. And the community just makes the whole operation more scalable, right? Like, and that's how it should be.
Yeah.
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
I think another cool example that I can think of, there's like a whole life cycle that can happen in the community. We have an example in the IBM community, and I'm not going to name the specific name, but that individual started in the community as a regular member. Then they got to know the IBM champions, got involved. At some point, itself became an IBM champion while going through the college years. And then as an IBM champion, she actually started to get mentorship from an IBM expert. They connected and they start working together. And after graduation, she actually joined IBM, right? Through that mentorship. It meant so much to her. So it's kind of super cool to see that somebody started, pre-college as just a regular member, and then now she's a colleague of mine. It's just amazing when you talk to those people and go like, wow, we made a difference in somebody's life. It may be just one, but I know wherever there's one, there are multiple examples like that.
But it's also, too, I think, and it's important when you look at communities, right, is that person that joined the community to find that mentor. They find that mentor, they get trained, it affected their life, it impacted their life, they found, a job, they feel like it actually empowered them, right? Like that was their participation in the community empowers them. And then they move on and they connect with other people and they empower them. Right. So really the point of mentorship is to keep the train going, right? And that's what successful mentoring programs do, is you train the mentee to become the mentor, and so it keeps going. And that's what community does at its heart. Like mentoring is community and community is mentoring. Like that's and it's so exciting. I get so excited to talk about it because that's what mentorship is, that's what community is, and that's what we do. We make impacts in people's lives, right? Like that's what's exciting.
And we're talking a lot about what it goes right when mentoring is done well, but what happens, what are some of the challenges we face? What are some ways that you've maybe tried to provide mentoring and it's not gone so well, so we can help each other learn better?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. No, do you want to start?
No. I need more time to think. Go for it.
So the challenge with mentoring, I think, within many programs is that everyone wants to participate in mentoring, but they don't want to participate or put in the hard work. And mentoring is hard work, right? Like, you've got to meet regularly, you've got to have a goal, you've got to set expectations. There are all these things that really mentoring, if it's done well, it takes work and it is a challenge. One of the examples that I like to use, again, an online dating example, because I like to compare mentoring to online dating.
I love it.
Yes. Is, I fill out my Bumble profile, right? And I swipe left, right, whatever. And I know that I can, go on, find a date if I want to, or I can't. But you know what? Sometimes I don't want to have to, change out of my sweatpants and go out on a Friday night for a drink. It's hard work. I don't want to do that. right? Like, but if you want to have a successful relationship, right, you've got to change out of those sweatpants, and you got to put on those heels. But people don't want to put in the work, and so like you're not going to have a successful mentoring really. And hopefully there's enough ladies that relate to that analogy, and I'm not totally missing everyone, but like, but that's how mentoring is, right? Like you've got to put on your heels, you got to go out. You can't just sit at home and be like, oh, like why don't I have a mentor? Like you don't have a mentor because you didn't want to put in the work, and that's the biggest challenge with mentoring. So.
I think, from my perspective, is consistency is a tough one because not everybody is the same. I think every time I tried to actually put a specific mentoring program in place, it failed because mentoring is such a personal thing. And it's so hard to say, here are the A, B, C, D steps of mentoring and what you need to do. Every time it's more organic and also time-defined, like a hackathon, for example, far more successful. The most successful mentoring exercises that I've done are time-based. Like, hey, for this particular time, you have access to this person, and everybody knows their role and knows how it goes. When it's indefinite timeline, it tends to sort of break apart. Another thing to mention that it's important, when I think about community, I try to think in a way that the customers of IBM as well as IBMers are part of the same community, right? So it's very important to recruit mentors within the brand that I'm working with, as well as recruiting mentors from our customer base. Because as more people get involved in the exercise, the more diverse the community is, and I think that somebody from IBM brings a different perspective than potentially a customer, and then from a mentee perspective, they can sort of like choose, do I want to be mentored by somebody within IBM, which we often see, people from like India or Asia be very drawn to, versus we see people from America drawn to their peers. So it's different behaviors around the globe, and you need to provide opportunities for everybody and not be too tight on this is exactly what it means. It's just be there, right? Give like some time to the community overall, and I think good things can happen.
And I'm glad you brought up the global perspective, because that's another challenge that we face within our community, because we are a global organization. And a lot of times the biggest challenge we have is people that participate from other countries, as mentorship to them means finding a job opportunity in the US. And so when they try to contact someone, that's really the conversation is, can you help me find a job? And it's hard because that's a fine line, right? Like that is what mentoring is about, helping people reach their goals, and that's their goal. But at the same time, it's not find me a job, it's how do you help prepare me to find a job, right? Like, so it's a different ask, and it's helping mentees across the globe, right, prepare that ask. So it's not just, hi, I'm so-and-so in a LinkedIn message, right, like give me a job. It's, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm interested in this industry and I'd like to find work this way. Like, can you help me work on my resume? Can you help me find these opportunities? So like that is very, very important, right? And that's one of the biggest challenges we face, and especially like working in global communities, is how do you help people across the globe find the resources that they need, which is what everyone in the audience is doing right now. Is as a community builder, you are helping your community find the resources they need, which is exactly what mentoring is doing. So like, again, mentoring is community, community is mentoring. So.
Good.
But I think we have time we wanted to talk a little bit about the community industry, right? And some of the opportunities that we have as community professionals, right? And so what is the importance role of mentoring within the community industry? Shawna, tell me a little bit about what you've seen.
I could talk about this all day long, because I would not be here, like Savannah was talking about, if I did not have mentors. I have some of my mentors in the room. Shout out Nisha and Willa for being here today. People who have truly, I'll give them applause, changed my life. And the importance of mentorship, I think, specifically inside of the community industry, is that this industry does not get enough love across all of technology. We know this. It's a constant complaint inside of this. We spend so much time explaining our purpose, what we do, why we do it. And the best thing we can do for one another is champion one another and give ourselves the gas, the energy to move forward. I'm a career pivoter. 2.5 years ago, I was working on a 137-acre organic farm and artist residency, and a year ago, I was working in nonprofit theater arts. I switched into technology, and it would not have been for the people who were able to map the skills that I learned on a farm, to technology. And I think that it's our job as industry members, as I'm sitting here, you know, I'm here, who else can I help bring up? We have to keep looking behind us and in front of us and down below and around and say, who else can we bring into this industry, because we need one another. And being a mentor is not being the smartest person in the room. If I can leave you with anything, it's that. You do not have to be here for years and years and years, so it's incredibly helpful to have that industry knowledge. If you care about people and making this industry better, you will find someone to help bring up and meet you where you are and help you extend beyond that. That's why it matters. Marius, how about you?
Hard to follow.
Hard to follow.
But yeah, so I always thought that everybody who's in the community work is responsible for the brand community. And I always thought one of my responsibilities to be that if I am talking to other community managers, or if I see things that may not fit the community brand, that I should speak out. I think events like CMX are awesome because it brings people together in our profession and kind of sets some standards. With other words, if your community gets a bad reputation with either your management or externally, it hurts my community, because we all own community. If I do something awesome and IBM, you know, grants me a title of Chief Community Officer and believes in community, that should help you guys, because you guys can go and point and say, like, look, you know, others are doing this. So in a way, we have to lift each other up, like you're mentioning, and it's super important that we use standards and the similar approaches and really, really value the responsibility that's granted to us to shepherd this term community, right? So I think that is what I would mentor back. I do get from time to time somebody on LinkedIn kind of writing me, it's like, hey, I'm in college, you know, I see you have this great title, I love community, do you have 5 minutes to talk to me? You know, it's important for us to take that 5 minutes, and in that 5 minutes or 15 minutes or half hour or sometimes an hour or whatever it turns out to be, it tends to be very long. My main point that I give across is that once you're taking on this job, you are really now responsible for everybody who runs a community. And your success will be shared by other communities, and other community success will be shared by you. We are kind of in it together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely, and we are better together. But so if I'm starting out, right, if I'm in the audience right now and maybe I haven't launched a community, or I'm just interested in getting into the industry, what is the best way for me to find a mentor? Marius, do you have any suggestions?
Well, like I said, go on LinkedIn, find somebody with an interesting title and similar area of work, and can reach out and say, like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? The other thing is our community network is awesome. A lot of the teams that do consulting, if you're just starting out, everybody that I know that I work with will take the time to just have a free call with you and just give you some advice. Lastly, you know, look to your right, introduce yourself, and start talking. I mean, that's how I would do it.
Yeah. Yeah, while I was making a career pivot into technology, I actually had a really hard time finding a mentor. And when I took a moment to self-reflect and think about why, I realized I wasn't talking about myself like I wanted the job or like I could do the job. I was talking about myself like, oh, I'm sorry to bother you. It's probably going to be a long call, or maybe even a short, I don't know, could you? And take that and toss it away. Whether you have been in the industry for years and you're looking for someone to mentor you through a new program, or you're just trying to start out in community, talk about yourself like you have the job. Talk about yourself like you belong in this industry, because if you don't, somebody else will. And there is too much imposter syndrome, and we could have a whole other conversation about that. And it took me starting to ask people, hi, I'm a community manager, a nonprofit, I'm looking to switch to technology, I'm really interested in grabbing 15 minutes of your time to learn more about how you've succeeded in this industry. Boom, the lineup happened. And those meaningful conversations can happen in 15 minutes. I know we often, you know, we ask for 5 minutes and we really want to go to 20. Try to keep it to 15 minutes and ask people questions about themselves. People can talk about themselves all day long. And it's a way to build these organic relationships, and you can learn so much from another person and get so much back. That's my...
Absolutely. So we've only got a couple seconds left, but any closing thoughts, Marius, Shawna?
Well, I think right back where I started, I think what you were just mentioning, mentoring is core to any community. Taking the time to define what mentoring means to your particular community and how it ties into the brand that you represent is worth the time.
Yeah, and I'll say on like the professional front, if it's not in your community, it's in our community. I think CMX has given us a great opportunity to gather together, so thank you for that. And there is always a good time to find a mentor. Everybody needs support. Everybody needs a helping hand. And if it's not you, you know, figure out a way of what are the things that you're really good at or passionate about, and that's a great way to become a mentor. And if you're interested in something, you know, find the people who are doing the job or doing the thing that you want to do and find them there. That's what I say.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both. I've enjoyed learning from both of you, and thank you to CMX for this great opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.